Thank you so much for coming out to Stories, Books, and Cafe tonight. Thank you, Liz Garrow, for setting this up. Clap for Liz Garrow. And I'm Dan Epstein. You know who these guys are.
I'm Jeff McDonald.
I'm Steve.
And we are here tonight to read to you from this mighty fine tome, Now You're One of Us, The Incredible Story of Red Cross. And I'm going to read a short chunk of it, kind of winging it, and then we're going to do a little Q&A. If you have any questions for us about this printed project, and then after that, Liz is going to have a table come over here, and we're going to sign copies of the book up here. So if that works for you all, I think that works for us. So we're going to read from a chapter called A Waste of Good Brain Power. Having successfully weathered their first cross-country tour, it was time for Red Cross to start thinking about the follow-up to Teen Babes from Monsanto. And a rock opera seemed like the obvious next move. With competent new managers in their corner and an agreement for a new record in place with Enigma Records, it seemed as if the band were poised to take things to the next level. Unfortunately, drugs and a penchant for absurd and potentially self-defeating pranks were taking precedence at this point for Jeff and Steven over things like songwriting and musical development.
We'd first met John Silva in San Francisco when he was Jello Biafra's roommate. He moved down to LA at some point and started managing the 3 o'clock, and he was really persistent about wanting to manage us.
We always managed to make records. We managed to play shows, but there was only so much we could do on our own. And also we were like being really stupid, druggy teenagers, so everything kind of stalled. John was starting a management thing with Spock from the band Backstage Pass, and they slowly started handling all of our affairs, and things started becoming more organized and together.
John had a lot of new guy in town energy, and I think he needed to put it somewhere. Jeff, that's funny. All right, pun intended. I don't know.
Fun intended.
Fun intended. Jeff and I weren't born into our connections, but we were very social people. And I think we were always viewed from afar as people who were connected to something, who had our finger on the pulse. So I think John was attracted to that. And Spock was definitely connected. She worked in and around the music business for a while and was friends with a lot of A&R people who we would have thought she was cooler than John, but we would have thought she was cooler than John, but John eventually seemed more competent. Not that we deserved more competence.
Here's where it gets complicated. After we did Teen Babes, I was thinking that our next record should be a concept album, like a rock opera. We were still in Enigma Records, and we were at the point of talking about which producers we wanted to work with. We told them that our dream was to work with Sonny Bono. The album was supposed to be called The Shroud of Lori Bono Christ. The title is part of a poem that came with the original Teen Babes from Monsanto album. Lori, of course, was Lori Partridge from the Partridge Family, and Bono was Sonny, not Bono from U2. I commend Bill Hine at Enigma for completely taking this concept seriously, even though we weren't in any condition to see it through.
I did commend him for that. Kim Fowley was kind of keeping tabs on us. We would do a Runaways song at a show, and then we'd get a call from him at our parents' house the next day, like, I heard you played Neon Angels on the Road to Ruin last night. Well, I've got 3 others just like it, but better. He was so funny, but so crazy. We would be laughing at him as much as we were laughing with him.
Kim would always give us the whole spiel about how he had published, how he had 250 published songs, 11 gold records, and that he had all these great unrecorded songs that we should record. And I'm like, I think we're good. We're putting a rock opera together. And he's like, I have a rock opera. I'm like, really? And we're thinking, wow, I mean, the idea of writing music to a Kim Valley rock opera that was produced by Sonny Bono.
So sad.
That's where our heads were for our next record. But then he sent it to our house in manuscript form, and it was just so bad. It was called Roommates, and it was it was just this really bad kind of theatrical piece. I was like, oh my God, how are we going to tell him that we're not going to do this, because it was so terrible. It just got pushed under the rug for a while, and we weren't really ready to make record anyway. Later on, he called and wanted me to send it back to him, but I couldn't find it. And the weird thing about it is, I recently going through a upper closet at my parents' house that still has stuff from when we lived there, and I found the envelope for it, addressed from Kim Valley to my parents' house, but it was empty. I looked everywhere. I still can't find it. So one day, one of my holy grails to find the manuscript to Roommates by Kim Valley.
Oh, jeez. We could just make a new version of it. Kim wanted to produce us, but I think Enigma had only promised to give us like $8,000 to make a record. By today's standards, that's actually a pretty decent budget, especially with inflation, but by 1985 standards, that wasn't much. And then Kim told me that Enigma had given Poison $25,000. And oh man, that just sent me through the roof. I was outraged. Having to watch the rise of Poison was so painful for the teenage Stephen McDonald. To be label mates with them and have people think we somehow had anything in common with those assholes was just mortifying.
I mean, now I'm like, good for them. They found their thing. But at the time, because we had close ties and we were considered peers, even though we never exchanged a single word with them, it was really annoying. And I have to say, I prefer Vince Neil's voice over Bret Michaels any day.
At some point, I actually marched into the office of Bill Hine, the president of Enigma Records, and said, Kim Valley told us you're giving Poison $25,000. And I just want to tell you that you're wasting this company's money. The band's not going to amount to anything. I was probably 17 at the time. Flash forward to a year later, to when Look What the Cat Dragged In comes out and is getting a lot of MTV airplay. By then, we're actively destroying our reputation with our own record label by crank calling them on a daily basis.
We were always playing pranks and making prank calls, but I think we probably pushed it to the edge a bit by targeting Enigma while we were still on the label.
Stryper were doing really well at the time, and both them and Poison were both on Enigma. We used to call Enigma pretending to be various members of those two bands, and we would make complaints about how much attention they were giving to the other band. It would be like, this is Michael Sweet from Stryper. Poison's getting so much support and we can't get any love from the label. This is bullshit. And it's pissing both Jesus and us off. Or then it would be like, this is CC DeVille from Poison. I'm seeing all these Stryper albums in the record stores, but I can't find our records anywhere. What the fuck is going on? We were literally calling our own project manager and saying this shit to them in our whiny, recognizable voices.
We also crank called Gloria Bennett, who was famous for being the vocal coach to the worst singers in Los Angeles.
Well, she coached us as well.
She advertised that she worked with Vince Neil and Bret Michaels, and she later worked with Anthony Kiedis. So that's quite a trifecta, right? Right there. Stephen and I actually took classes with her a few times, and it was absolutely horrifying. She was this big, heavyset opera lady who had this whole classical approach of yelling at you if you weren't doing it right, and forcing you to put your hands on her abdomen so you can feel her diaphragm move when she sang properly. So we left some messages on her machine where we pretended to be where we pretended in hoarse voices that we were Robert Sweet and Bret Michaels, and that she had blown out our vocal cords with her bad instruction.
You've destroyed my voice, and I've ruined my career. I'm going to sue you. So she gets all upset and takes the tapes to Enigma and plays it for them. And the same project manager, I think her name was Sandra. God bless Sandra. And we've been crank calling, goes, that's not Robert Sweet. That sounds like Jeff McDonald.
I remember John Silva's calling us in a panic. What did you do to Enigma? We didn't admit to him what we had done, but he knew we did. He knew us. He was like, how are we going to explain this to the A&R person at Enigma? So rather than come clean, we threw a friend of ours under the bus. I called our friend Paul Kudneris, aka Paul K from the band Imperial Butt Wizards, and said, we don't know what to do. Can we blame it on you?
We told Enigma, oh, that was our friend Paul. He's really mischievous character. And he somehow got a hold of our Rolodex. We're sorry.
It was such bullshit, such a lie. But in order for Enigma to save face, we had to make it look like we were the victims too. It was the ultimate act of passive aggression.
But then the A&R person at Enigma told us, I want you to write an apology to the Striper organization and the Poison organization. And there were all these other stipulations and conditions about what we needed to do to gain redemption.
We told Paul we had to write an apology to Poison and Striper. He goes, I'll do it. I'll write an apology on a tortilla with a Sharpie and send it to them. That was the first thing that came to his head.
I always thought it was going to be ballpoint pen on a tortilla. But either way, I remember thinking it was a really funny idea. I don't think we ever executed it, though.
It was all kind of dropped once we were able to find a scapegoat to blame, someone that they didn't know. It was just kind of went away. But it would have been a great ending to the story if it really was documentation of the Poison Striper organizations receiving apology letters on tortillas. For some reason, our relationship with Enigma never ended by this It wasn't ended by this fiasco. I think our relationship just kind of fizzled out because we never got around to making a record for them. And by the time we were ready to make another record, we were already talking to another label, and Enigma were busy shipping out millions of copies of Look What the Cat Dragged In. The whole incident should have put the kibosh on our pranks, but that's the thing with being a habitual prankster. Getting caught that time should have been like, oh my God, I'm an adult. I can't be doing these things. But of course, it kept going. Like later on, we'd be on tour and we'd be calling our road manager from the back of the van while he was driving, pretending to be the promoter, calling to cancel shows. I mean, you're bored. What else are you supposed to do? But it was such a waste of good brain power. I will say that. I mean, we could have been putting that energy into writing really creative songs. Red Kross only played about a dozen.
That's me. But we're going to. I felt it was very important for this book to include the Poison apology tortilla. So this is what we cooked up together for the book. Dear Poison, long time. Hope you dudes are well. It's been, nearly 40 years since we played with you guys in Leather Wolf at the Country Club in Reseda? Crazy. That prom limo you rented for the show sure was classy. How's Coco Smith doing these days? Anyway, we're really sorry for repeatedly calling Enigma Records, pretending to be you guys, and telling them how pissed off we were because Striper's new album was in all the stores, but copies of Look What the Cat Dragged In were nowhere to be found. Brett, we're also really sorry for leaving messages on your voice coach's answering machine and telling her that you were going to sue her for blowing her voice out with her vocal exercises. We know you're a consummate professional with dynamite pipes, and it was totally wrong for us to jeopardize your business relationships with our immature prank calls. This apology is long overdue, but we hope you'll accept this tortilla as a token of our sincerity. Eat it. Jeff and Stephen McDonald, Red Kross.
It's over.
So, I guess to begin the Q&A, I think I speak for us all when I say my condolences that you guys will be on tour in Europe with the Melvins at the same time that Bret Michaels, Vince Neil, and Stephen Pearcy are going out on the road together.
Oh my God!
I know that's
Wait,
good.
Stephen Pearcy, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
3 icons, man. It's,
Los Angeles.
and there's 6-note vocal range between them.
Well, I mean, besides those people and Stephen and myself, Gloria Bennett also was vocal coach to Exene, too, another Los Angeles person.
Wow. But did she promote Exene as one of her
Yes, she
clients?
did.
Okay. So, and I wanted to ask you guys a question. Jeff, you and I were talking about this a little bit beforehand. When I did the documentary screening event in Boston, someone asked me this, and I was like, I can't believe we didn't talk about this. Which was basically, the question was, the Van Halen brothers had a band in LA. You guys had a band of Foreign Blood Brothers in LA. Did that have any kind of impact or influence on you at all?
No, because we were already a band before their first record came out.
Well, what is it, 78?
Yeah, first record came out in 78.
We were still in the I think in 78 we were still in the tennis racket stage of our career. But you do have a story about seeing Van Halen in a backyard party, you believe.
No, I know I saw that.
I have photographic
It's photogenic as well.
Memory when it comes to gear. It's really strange. I can tell you every single guitar that Elton John's band played in 1974. It's a weird thing. My friend was having a kegger party in his backyard in what was that? Do you remember that part?
That would have been, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like
77.
yeah, probably that. And this band came and played, and I saw them load their gear in, and when I later saw a picture of Mammoth, I noticed, oh my God, that bass, those guitars. I realized the Mammoth was Van Halen. But we never got to see them perform because they played really loud for about 10 minutes, and then the cops came and dropped tear gas on all the teenagers. It was great, but there's nothing to really tell about the performance. Just the gear.
The tear gas is impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So does anybody have any questions about this book? I just have to say it was an absolute honor to help these guys tell their story, and I don't know, some of you I know have read this, some of you have not. Anybody got questions? Sir.
Yeah, I've got the book in my hot hands, but I haven't read it, so I can't reference the book. But what LA gig venues were your favorite, and what were your least favorite aspects of when you played locally?
Well, one of the least favorites was a club called Helen's Place, later known as there was a lot of problems with that place because it was the only place that would book bands like us at the time, and it was run by Helen. She was the mother of what was her name?
She was E.G. Daly of Pee-wee's Big Top.
Yeah, but
She was her mother.
She was a hard ass, and she would always scream at us for playing too loud. She would go on the stage and unplug our amplifiers if we were, over 2 on our amps, and she was just a pain in the ass. It was like the kind of that yard teacher that that's always making you sit on the bench because you kick the ball after the bell. That was like that. But as far as good clubs, I mean, LA's full of them.
Well,
where was Helen's Place? Just so.
Where was it? It was later called the Anti-Club, and it was on Melrose
Yeah.
at Normandy. Yeah, Helen's Place. And I just would like to maybe counterbalance what Jeff had to say about Helen. She actually loved us, I think, and she turned our amp. I believe that she thought she was doing us a favor by turning down our amps.
I think the relationship was more similar to like my vice principal in 7th grade. Like I would get sent to the principal's office every day, but I was able to make him laugh. Didn't mean he liked me.
Okay. Well, I think you and I had different relationships with Helen, but which is possible. And then as far as good clubs, I mean, it's sad the state of their booking nowadays, but the Whiskey A Go Go has been an all ages club since the '60s, and it was really important thing that we were able to. And then and in the late '70s, they still did early shows and late shows, and they even did what do you call that when people play many nights in a row? They did residencies still, like it was the '60s. So we could talk our parents into taking us to the early shows on, certain residencies and things like that, and that was a really important part of our formation.
Yeah, so it was a really big deal when we finally played that. It was a huge deal.
Cool.
So, Neurotica, that was like my intro to Red Kross, and just a very, very inspiring album in my young adulthood. And it was on Big Time Records. Did they give you the promotion that album really needed?
Well, when our album Neurotica, which actually was what the Shroud of Laurie Christ was supposed to be.
Laurie Bono
Christ.
Christ. I didn't know what you were talking about.
No, at the time, the record label, we put the record out, we were really into it, and it was really fun, everything, but then they went out of business.
Yeah, they went out of business.
But they went out of business, and they were being sued by,
Air
everyone.
Supply.
Yeah, Air
Well,
Supply.
because the guy who started the label's Australian, and he was the former manager of Air Supply. And so that's where he got all the money to start the label, but we didn't realize that his practices weren't totally above board, I suppose. And so when we left, when we went on tour for Neurotica, they were like, there's a bustling office, like 50 people or 25 or something, and they had all these different departments. When we came back from tour, there was one little old lady, secretary, and then the boss guy. I mean, we weren't savvy enough to know that was not good, but it soon revealed itself that was not good.
But it does seem to be like the Velvet Underground and Nico of the grunge movement, right?
Sure.
Everybody that bought the album went out and started a band, right?
Yes, exactly, yeah. I'm always really proud of the fact that it did inspire a lot of people to start bands.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah. That's a better command of your mouth than mine. I like it. I like that.
Mr. Jenkins.
Was the congratulations everybody on the book and all the activity. I was curious as to whether or not the documentary and the book coincided, or was there a period of time where one had started and the other followed, and then somewhere in the middle of this you guys decided to make a new record, which I think some of us would agree is maybe the best record you guys have ever made.
Thank you. I would agree. Well, I'll answer the first part of that, or get that rolling. The documentary was definitely underway. Born Innocent, The Story of Red Kross by Andrew Reich, who is here. Give it up for Andrew.
Yeah.
So that was already happening, and in fact, when I was writing the proposal for this book, Andrew very generously gave me a bunch of transcripts of his interviews and a really early edit screener of the documentary, which was really helpful and could just kind of blocking out the chapters for prospective book companies. But the documentary changed a lot after that point. But I think the fact that it was already in progress was really helpful in terms of us selling the book. I don't think any of us guessed that the book and the documentary and the album would all kind of come out at the same time. So on to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that we really had say over was the making a record, and I would definitely give Andrew credit for putting the fire under our ass to not let that opportunity pass us by, a film being out there and not having new Red Kross record out there for people. So the movie started all these projects. I would definitely give Andrew Reich once again credit for all of that. Thank you.
It was very confusing, as you can tell.
Well, but the difficult part was when all the deadlines happened in the same week, basically. So that, my nervous system, I don't thank Andrew for my nervous system being shot, but but other than that, it's been a good thing.
Yeah, I've told this story at a couple of events where you weren't there, so I'll tell it to your face. So the process of working on this book with these guys was incredibly fun. It was generally the highlight of my week, our phone calls, and we got on great, and then right as the shit was hitting the fan, you and I, Stephen, had a bit of a like a 20-minute kerfuffle about photo clearances and who was going to handle what, and so we had a little fight, and I felt like, that's it, I'm finally in the Red Cross family, because I've had a fight with you guys during a project. So it felt great, but I also felt terrible, and I apologize profusely.
Well,
after.
I hope that I hope you've been ruminating about that.
It's all water under the bridge. I just think it's funny now.
I remember, there was something about Dropbox. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't access it because I wasn't trying hard enough.
And I took the opportunity to shame you about that. But that was rough. But that's back to those deadlines that all kind of piled on at the same time. We were having to get all the photographs licensed, signed off on at the same time as we were making videos for our record and putting together a live show.
And I think you were still figuring out the layout for the record
artwork and whatever, the luxury problems. But I hope I handled that okay. You think you're okay?
It calmed
We're good.
We're totally
okay,
good.
Great. Okay. It'd be an amazing time to run an axe.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, because it seemed like it would have been such a good matchup. Did you guys ever get approached by Greg Shaw, Bomb Records, to do anything?
Oh yeah, Greg Shaw. We did do one thing with Greg Shaw, a bootleg.
Oh.
It was a bootleg recording of our performance at the Cavern Club with Sky Saxon, formerly of the Seeds. I loved Greg Shaw. I thought he was a visionary. He was awesome, but we never formally worked together. But he did bootleg us.
I mean, Greg was probably at our very first shows. Joe Nolte of The Last produced our first demo, and Greg was one of those characters we would see at the church in Hermosa Beach where Black Flag rehearsed and it was headquarters. So he's one of the first sort of, established, rock community people that we met.
One more question. Was there an opening band for when you saw Van Halen at the backyard party?
No, they barely got to play a song or two.
Because speaking of brother bands, I was in Wall of Voodoo with my brother Mark.
Oh, cool.
And we were in a band called the Sky People, and in the San Gabriel Valley, and we opened about 20 shows for Van Halen. In backyard parties, I got busted by tear gas.
So you opened for Mammoth, right?
Yeah.
And then later Van Halen.
Van Halen proper.
Yeah. So you didn't?
Awesome.
Did you do a party on 115th Street by any chance?
Might have been,
Yeah.
I think that my wife Charlotte even played with Van Halen before. I've heard her with the eyes.
Imagine that.
So we missed out on the whole Van Halen trip.
But we actually weren't at that party. It was 2 doors down. But I remember we were watching all the shenanigans through our living room window, and there literally was the cops just dropped off a tear gas bomb and bailed, and I still remember this wasted girl just walking through it,
Bell bottoms.
oh, that stinks. It would have brought anyone down. But
I remember opening the door. It was the first and only time I ever actually smelled a tear gas. It was harsh.
Yeah, we opened the door for a second and close it. It was horrifying, but it'd be fun to ask Alex Van Halen about that someday.
Margo.
How did the book come about, and how did y'all come together to write it?
Okay, so the book. Can I tell my version of it? Okay, so our literary agent Lee Sobel, who definitely deserves a shout out, and he did a great job of connecting us with Dan. He reached out to me on Facebook, and actually a good example of social media being worthwhile in my life. But he did pull the total bait and switch. He wrote me and said, "Yeah, I think maybe he mentioned a podcast or something. He's like, I think you should write your own book. That would be great. So he first approached me about a Steve McDonald book, which I was like, really? You think so? Steve McDonald book? And I was all about it. And about I don't know, 24 hours later, he switched it to a Red Cross book, and which was wise and smart. It's true. And but then Lee paired us with Dan, who we didn't know. Probably we have many people in common, but we hadn't yet to make the actual connection. And Lee found Omnibus to do this, so he definitely deserves that credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lee. Well, and the reason he brought me in was because you and I had done an interview for Flood Magazine about the Neurotica reissue.
So 20 years earlier.
No, like 20 days earlier. This is about the reissue.
Sorry.
No. It's
Well, it all kind of happened
no,
at the same time.
yeah, and you there's a lot of heat on you. There are a lot of interviews going on.
Right.
So, but he really liked the interview, and he was like, "Do you think Stephen?" But I mean, he approached me about a Stephen McDonald book as well.
Did he really?
He did.
Okay, so it wasn't like full bullshit.
No. And I said, you know what? I think we should go. If we're going to do this, we should do a Red Cross book.
You inspired. Well, that makes sense.
So then we had a Zoom call with me, Lee, and these guys, and I could sense the consternation because the only books that I had published were baseball books, and baseball books in the 70s. So it's like, A, why is this guy who writes baseball books want to do something with us? And B, I think there was that whole leftover damage from your
76.
right and your 70s retro thing.
We're never going to live down the bell bottoms.
Right, and you thought like I was going to come in and be like, oh, 70s are groovy, man.
Okay, your musical message. Yeah. What about the bell bottoms?
Right. Sure. Let's talk about that. So and then we did have some folks in common. In fact, Jason Shapiro,
That's true.
your present lead guitarist, I was in a band with a million years ago called the Jupiter Effect. So
With Michael Corsia.
With Michael Corsia. So I was like, ask Jason, I'm cool. You can, So that's kind of how it all came together. And yeah, Lee did a great job shopping it too. So.
But this was a great opportunity to just say thank you, Dan, for working with us on this book. I think you did an awesome job. You really handled me and Jeff well, and I don't think it's an easy task. And aside from our Dropbox issue,
The Dropboxing match.
Yeah, I think you got initiated several times in this situation between that tension between the siblings, and I think you helped to make dysfunctional brothers function, and I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
And this book is it's an oral history, and what I think was interesting about the way you wrote it, the way we wrote it together, you interviewed us separately.
Yeah.
So even though we're reading it like it's unfolding live like a script, we weren't in the same room ever, not even once. And Stephen and I would forget things or remember things differently. So then you'd have to figure out like the truth is somewhere in between, which I thought was hilarious because the truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah, and that's part of why I wanted to do it as an oral history rather than as the history of Red Cross by Dan Epstein, because then I would have had to try to figure out what the truth was. This way, it's just like, I have no fucking idea, but here's Jeff's take, here's Steven's take. Let's, let them both ride.
Yeah, then we would be arguing if we were being interviewed at the same time. So that was even smooth.
Yeah, I interviewed you guys together once in 1997 when Show World came out, and I learned my lesson then. So.
Really?
Yeah, we were in the same room at Mercury Records. It was like Mercury Records conference room or something, and so there was a lot of stepping on each other, and
we've improved with age.
Yes, but no, it was an absolute delight. Our like I said, our weekly phone calls. It just I would always, there was always something that I had no idea about. And it was great for me because I'm a huge Red Cross fan, and I get to ask you guys whatever I want. And but it was also like you always told me things every call that completely blew my mind. Like Jeff, you getting punched out by Ellis Valentine in rehab. Like in a million years, I would not have predicted that. So
Baseball.
yeah, exactly. Like as soon as you told me that, I was like, yeah, I was the guy to write this book. Anyone else? Derek.
Were there any pranks or shenanigans that the McDonald brothers laid on the set of Spirit of '76?
Nah, not that I'm remembering. I mean, yeah, it seems like there would have been rife for all sorts of shenanigans with that cast of characters. We were way more cowardly about our pranks. I mean, the idea, it would have been great to prank, Leif Garrett in 1989.
But you didn't really need to.
But also, we didn't have like the shield of a telephone 1,000 miles away, kind of thing, But yeah, I don't know. I think we were also just kind of had our hands full, taking on that medium, and acting and all that. So, we were just surviving. I mean, we didn't prank David Cassidy, did we?
That would have been cruel.
Yeah, that would have been mean, actually. Yeah, because he was always kind of bummed that we were so much taller than him. And they would put him on
Well, it was terrible because we shoot in location and like actual neighborhoods, and some lady would come up like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're so short." And like, "Oh my," this guy's been hearing this for his whole life.
Well, if I did him no favors, that he'd be standing in between us.
And they would have to stand on an Apple cart. But imagine like Tom Cruise goes to do the same thing and he's laughing all the way to the bank. So
It's all fun.
no big deal.
It's all fun. Any other questions?
Well, you mentioned acting out, and I'm a big movie fan, and you guys always are popping up in Alice Anders movie. Can you talk a little bit about just how you?
Well, Jeff's really kind of been an Alice Anders a regular more than me, I would say. Is there any memorable?
Oh, I've just been friends with Allison Anders for years, and I think the first film I was in was Gas, Food, and Lodging, which we filmed in Deming, New Mexico. And my scene, I got not punched, but James Brolin pulled my hair really fucking hard because I was being sleazy with his movie daughter.
You mean that was in the scene?
In the scene, but he was like very method about it.
Yeah, very method.
I had long, flowing, beautiful, freshly combed hair.
Wow.
And well, I think we talk a little bit about it in the book, the grace of my heart thing. And I seem to that '97 interview I did with you guys. I remember you talking about at the time the movie wasn't out yet, and you were talking about it and talking about how like the Brian Wilson character had written a song about a pickle, and you guys are supposed to be like a pickle.
Yeah. Well, actually, I do have one brag about that. So we're in an Alice Anders movie, Grace of My Heart, and the movie is sort of loosely based on Carole King, I think. Yeah. Carole King story, and then the Brian Wilson Beach Boys story. And she's kind of taken artistic license with these characters, but that's her inspiration. And so we're in the studio as the Beach Boys, are the band members of the Brian Wilson character. And a lot of the lines weren't really written. They were just kind of, she's like, do your thing. So what would you say? And so we were listening to the playback, and then I said what I would have said in the band, which was, how are we supposed to play this live? And then she showed an early cut to Martin Scorsese, Allison told me that he made a point of saying, that was the issue. Or something like that. So, whatever. I heard that later, roundabout, that I got a shout out from. He didn't say who wrote that line or anything, but I wrote that line.
Do you think the Tater Tots will ever get back together?
Well, I don't think the Tater Tots will get back together because we lost our fearless leader with the untimely death of Bill Bartell.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping for like tater tot reissues and remastering and and I don't know, maybe
a tater tot tribute band. You know.
Tater comes alive again.
Yeah. If people, the Tater Tots were hard to explain, but it was a band that we put together to pay tribute to Yoko Ono and Linda Eastman, as we called her at the time. And that was basically they were our muse.
Well, and you were doing this because this was at a time where like it was still like really fashionable to bag on Yoko and Linda for breaking up the Beatles or whatever.
Yeah, I grew up loving Yoko. When Yoko made her debut on television, it blew my mind. I was a little kid and I loved it. And but later in the 80s, there was a thing called Beatle Fest, and there was a big, at the Bonaventure Hotel, and there was all these Beatle people. They would buy Beatle goods, watch Beatle videos, see Beatle sound-alike bands, but from hanging out at these places, what we realized that these people weren't Beatle fans, but they were Beatle bigots because they hated Yoko Ono so much. Even like it's like we couldn't understand it. So
yeah.
So going back to the Tater Tots.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've told this. Is it in the book? The story? Yeah, Live Aid at Beatle Fest. Well, so Bill Bartell, who there's also a brand new documentary about. Everyone should, if they get a chance to see The Secret Lives of Bill Bartell, you should check it out. He was the main Tater, lead Tater. And so Live Aid at Beatle Fest, right. So on that Sunday night at the Bonaventure Hotel, which is the culmination of like a whole weekend's worth of Beatle festival activities, they would have the Battle of the Beatle bands, and it would all be like very like, mop top era Beatles, bands like, Shout or P.S. I Love You. And so we showed up, and I don't know how Bill got us booked on this, but that's a perfect example of the kind of things Bill could do. He got us booked, and it was, and somehow the Tater Tots were, got to play this. And it was like, there was like a 6-7 piece band. You actually didn't show up for Beatle Fest. We replaced Jeff with Jimmy McNichol jammed with us that night, which is an obvious replacement for you. But that's also something that Tater Tots would do. They get fun celebrity guests to play. And Jimmy McNichol played the floor tom, and then we had Dave Markey and Jennifer Schwartz, all of our friends from the Love Dolls films, and Bill Bartell, and we proceeded to do like a 12-minute version of Don't Worry Kyoko. I don't know the full title, the Don't Worry Kyoko, Mommy's
only looking for
Hand in the snow.
a hand in the snow.
Mommy's only looking for a hand in the snow. And so we turned,
Just remember, there's at least 1,000 people in there.
Yeah, it was a packed, big like ballroom at the Bonaventure, and and then the Beatle, as Jeff said, the Beatle bigots were not happy. They were not happy that we were doing that we were paying tribute and
Jennifer was Jennifer was placed into a plastic bag and was rolling around screaming, "Why?"
As one does.
And she told a story that I recently heard. Like after they pulled they pulled the power on the band, kicked them off. The whole place screaming and booing at them. Jennifer bumped into a guy who was dressed like the white suit John Lennon, the beard, that kind of Abbey Road.
Abbey Road.
And he looked at her and said, "Slut." They were horrible, these horrible people.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. So then Bill, of course, in his genius, he managed to get the whole thing recorded somehow, including like a 10-minute argument with the organizers of Beatle Fest, where the guy at one point, Bill was saying, John Lennon would have loved this, and he said, yeah, well, John Lennon also loved Yoko Ono. But so there's one side of this, it eventually became a 45. One side is the argument with the organizer, and the other is the jam, and it was entitled Live Hate at Beatle Fest. And so that's one for Discogs or whatever.
Anyone else? Sir and back.
I haven't read the
book yet. I've seen the documentary a couple times. I always wonder what happened around the cycle of show worlds, since it wasn't really talked about in the documentary. And I came out and I saw you at Aaron's Records. I went back to New York and told all my friends, oh, this is it, they're finally going to be huge. I just wonder what happened after.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you didn't work at the record label, and you weren't our radio person, and we could have really used someone with that kind of perspective on it.
I think by the time we put out the Show World album, our record label was more concerned about the Chris Gaines album that was coming out.
I was in trouble. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was just, for some reason, we one of the unfortunate things I think that I was kind of conditioned with was just this idea that we needed to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like if we were going to if a major label was going to invest money in us, then we couldn't just do okay, you know? And so by the time 1997 rolled around, we'd essentially been not a major label band, but we had been a band for nearly 20 years. So it was kind of one of the downsides of being such an early starter, that I was barely in my 30s, but I was already like, you know, a bit grizzled. And my feelings were profoundly hurt, I suppose, and I didn't have the forethought to realize, like, oh, it's just a bump in the road, and it's no big deal, and who gives a fuck if this record label expects you to sell 3 million copies? That's on them. I didn't know to think that. I thought that I was supposed to succeed for them, succeed for everybody. All I ever wanted to do was just earn a living playing music. I didn't need to be rich, but I had bought into this idea of like, well, I have no backup plan, so it's this or flipping burgers, I guess. I have no idea, and not that there's anything wrong with flipping burgers either, but you know, so I think, yeah, so maybe, I don't remember what's in the documentary, but often when I've talked about that era, I always talk about it from this like lens of feeling like a failure, I suppose, but it's just, you know, it's some stupid stuff that I finally have worked out and realized that I was just kind of taking on a lot of expectations and buying into it, and you know, but also Jeff needed to take a break. He was a new dad, and he had been the primary songwriter for all that time, so there's a lot of pressure on him for a long time too, to be creative, to milk him for the, you know, the supposed hit song that was just a, yeah. So, you know, I mean, it was just a bunch of things conspired for us to feel like it was time to at least go on hiatus of an indefinite amount of time. But that being said, looking back now, I think it's a quality record, and I know people who really enjoy it, and I no longer debate that with them.
Can you touch upon the origins of Anarchy 6?
You would like to know about the origins of Anarchy 6?
How did it come about? And I didn't see Red Cross, but I saw Anarchy 6 at the Anti-Club, and you guys were, I don't know if you were...
You were at the Anarchy 6 show?
I was there too. I was just watching with you.
Well, you had bandanas on, and you were mocking hippies.
Yeah. Yeah, we hated old punks and hippies.
It was a really great show, but how did that come about? Why did you do the record?
Yeah, well, Hardcore Lives. And
it's a classic album.
Yeah, Hardcore Lives. I love this idea. Like, you're like, oh, yeah, Red Cross, whatever, but tell me more about Anarchy 6. That's great. Well, Anarchy 6 was invented for the second Love Dolls film. Love Dolls Superstar, and the arc of my character. I'm a hippie that, well, I'm actually the twin brother of my deceased character from the first film, Johnny Tremaine. So I come to LA, fresh off the bus from the Freedom School in Arizona, a la Billy Jack, and my character's name is Rainbow Tremaine. And then Rainbow is, you know, it's sort of like, I think that perhaps Guns N' Roses got the idea for Welcome to the Jungle from the story arc of Rainbow Tremaine, perhaps, because yeah, that's the tale that it is. It's like I have my heart broken by the, you know, the cold just brutality of the city, and then eventually my character metamorphosizes into a hardcore punk rock singer named Chemical Warfare. And that's how that started. And then, so we did one song for the movie. We wrote one song, and that was Slam, Spit, Cut Your Hair, Kill Your Mom. Which killing moms seemed to be very popular in that film series. Yeah. Because the best line for the first movie was, "Gee, thanks for killing my mom. Sure, no problem." And then, but then, like anything in that camp, that sort of Love Dolls, Tater Tots world, we never could leave well enough alone. So we had the one song that went over great. It was great, but then we got to do more. So we did an album, and then we played a show. I think the only show I think I did was at the Anti-Club. You were there, and I don't.
You wrote and recorded the entire album in one day.
Well, I don't. Maybe. Well, I co-wrote with my bandmates Dave Markey and Mike Geek, and yeah. I mean, I think we did it quickly. Maybe it was one day. Yeah, we did it faster than the Beatles did "Please Please Me." Hard to believe.
And just as influential.
Yeah, and just as.
And just as influential. Anyone else?
Have you had enough?
You want to get your book signed?
Now you have to go read this. Okay.
So I think, Liz, the books are available for purchase at the front, and so please buy them. And if you've already bought them, come on up and we'll sign them. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.